There is a growing dissatisfaction in Assam's predominantly Bengali-speaking Barak Valley regarding the Election Commission's preliminary delimitation proposal for the state. Several political parties, including the Congress, the AIUDF, have called for a bandh to express their opposition to the plan of decreasing the number of assembly seats in the valley. So, what is the issue? Last week, the Election Commission released a preliminary proposal for the delimitation of Lok Sabha and Assembly constituencies in Assam, marking the first delimitation exercise in the state since 1976. The draft maintains the current number of Lok Sabha seats, which stands at 14, and Assembly seats at 126 constituencies. However, it suggests modifications to boundaries and names, as well as the addition of new constituencies in certain areas and reduction in others. Specifically, the draft proposes a decrease in the number of assembly constituencies from 15 to 13 in the three districts of Barak Valley, namely Kachar, Hailakandi and Karimganj, which have triggered protests from political leaders in the region, and hence the protest, the bandh has been called in. Dada, we have heard you and your inputs as far as Manipur situation is concerned. Now, talking of another northeastern state of Assam, the delimitation aspect, starting from the beginning, could you please share with us the history and how it is happening after 26 years and the delimitation in Assam, and why is it being carried out in Assam now?
Well, why it is carried out in Assam now is a thing that both the state government and also the election commission will have to answer. Because anything that you do going out of the way in Assam will raise heckles. And the reason for that is that, you had the clip of the BJP gentleman, Mr. Margarita speaking, and you also heard Aminul Islam. I mean, we can genuinely understand that when the accent of this whole exercise is on protecting the interest of the local people, in Assam some say local people, and in indigenous people, automatically there is a fear that people who are not considered to be indigenous by the so-called indigenous people, they are in for trouble. And the reason why these minority groups are worried about this exercise is the experience they had during updating of the National Register of Citizens. Well, as you know, the NRC is very typical to Assam. It's not something that happens elsewhere in the country. Now, of course, there are demands by various quote-unquote indigenous groups. And I don't want to get into this debate about who is indigenous and who is not. There are all kinds of angles to it. But those who consider themselves indigenous and don't consider some of the other people living in the state as indigenous and want to other them, now these people who were othered or who have been othered historically in Assam face the brunt of the NRC exercise. Their names were not there. Nearly 2 million people, to nearly 20 lakh people found themselves excluded from the National Register of Citizens. And, it's not the people who are excluded who are raising the heckles, who are saying that they have been unjustly, taken out of the NRC. But now even Hemanta Biswa Sarma, the Chief Minister of Assam, has said that he is not happy with it. They want the NRC to be done again. Now when these things happen, there is an atmosphere of witch hunt. And some people who don't exactly qualify automatically as indigenous because their mother tongue is not Assamese in Assam or Meitei in Manipur, they feel threatened. The fact is that Assam, like Manipur, is a multilingual, multi-religious state and multiracial as well. But the point is that some people in both these states consider themselves to be indigenous and don't consider others to be sons of the soil, others to be legitimate residents of the state and want them thrown out. And you have seen this since the Assam agitation, which was targeting Bengali-speaking people mostly, and also Nepali-speaking people. So, for historical reasons, And especially because this delimitation exercise now comes slightly ahead of due time and immediately after the NRC exercise, that there are understandable concerns among the minority communities, the people who suffered due to the NRC exercise. But on the other hand, you have to have delimitation from time to time. It's a constitutional process. It's part of the process of India's ballot box democracy that you need to update the voter lists, you need to update all these things, and you need to delimit constituencies to actually be, to actually fit in the criterion of representation so that, you know, people are adequately represented in the parliament and in the assembly. So this is an exercise that has to happen. The only thing is, this has to happen in a way which does not target bona fide Indian citizens who have all the bona fides of Indian citizens, but who are othered in the state of Assam and also in Manipur, was considered as others by so-called quote-unquote indigenous population. Therefore, the exercise has to be fair and it should not aim at reducing the importance of any particular community. You know, this whole exercise of Jor Tod, as it is locally, loosely called, that you do delimitation in a way, in a very, sort of calculated way, that the importance of, the electoral, the importance of the vote of some community is deliberately sort of marginalized or neutralized through this exercise about delimitation. Now, there are understandable concerns about that.
Right.
And it's important that the election commission does it with in a way that is seen as fair. Otherwise, there will be understandably allegations coming from certain communities in Assam that election commission is the mouthpiece of the government. They're doing what the government is doing. It's not an independent institution, which it should be. So, three things very important. One, the whole exercise should have happened along with the rest of the country. But if it is done in Assam now, no issue if it is done properly, and if it does not target, any particular community. It should also ensure that it's done in keeping with the broad criterion of delimitation that is used in the rest of the country. Something specific to Assam, should not be started so that, some people feel marginalized, neutralized by this whole exercise. And last but not the least, if some communities, everybody in India has a right to protest, and if somebody is protesting, non-violently, that should be allowed to happen rather than being crushed by brutal force, as has happened sometimes in the Northeast, in Assam particularly. So these are the three issues that have to be kept in mind as the exercise goes ahead. It's fine that the exercise happens, delimitation has to happen, but the important thing is how it is done. It's not a question about why it is done. The why question is settled because it has to happen. The how question is important.
Right. Another, talking about indigenous people, talking about the possible NRC delimitation connect, if going a little further, if I may take the liberty here, and we are also, as we speak, we are waiting for distinguished guest from who was formerly with Election Commission. But let me take the liberty and ask you this. Why the Election Commission's Assam delimitation proposal is being seen as communal, if I can be very direct here? The BJP has given a thumbs up to the draft, which many say could actually be leading to a reduction in Muslim representation. Now, is this the time to address the elephant in the room about it is particularly allegedly being targeted and being brought in order to target a particular community?
Well, the heckles that has been raised by elements in the Muslim communities because of the displayed over enthusiasm of the BJP and some of the other organizations which claim to represent the indigenous people of Assam, i.e. Assamese-speaking people. The point is that even the Bengali Muslims in Brahmaputra Valley speaks Assamese, and they consider themselves as No Khomia, which means Neo-Assamese, but
Okay.
who are derided as Mia, which is a very derogatory term in the Assam context. The point I'm trying to make here is that the elephant in the room is not the exercise per se. The elephant in the room is the over enthusiasm, displayed over enthusiasm, I would insist, of the BJP and some of the other people who claim to represent indigenous interests. When they say that this draft is going to protect the interest of the indigenous people in 102 seats out of the 126, it means that at the moment there are many more seats which return Muslim candidates because the Muslims are in large number in those areas. It means that this draft delimitation would have actually done the exercise in a way by attaching certain Muslim areas, breaking them up, attaching them to other constituencies where Assamese Hindus are in minority or some other ethnic groups are in minority, so that how it happens in multilingual, multiracial, and multi-ethnic societies like Assam is that if one particular community is preponderant in a constituency, political parties tend to give the ticket to somebody from that community. Now, let me give you an example. If in some constituency, the Muslims are 60% of the population, and in Assam, Assamese Muslims are a small minority. The most of the Muslims are people of East Bengali origin, i.e. people who have come from East Pakistan, East Bengal, or what is now Bangladesh. Now, these people in some constituencies, say like Dobri, are between 60 to 80% of the population. And usually you would then expect the political parties, to field a candidate who belongs to this community. That's the trend.
Right.
Except West Bengal, this is the trend in the rest of the country. West Bengal, during left rule, we have seen Tridip Chaudhary, RSP man, standing from Murshidabad, 70-80% Muslims, but that's an ideological thing. The elections, the left would take it on ideological lines. It's not important who is the candidate, which community he comes from. It's important which party he represents and what ideology. But in Assam, usually, if there is 60%, 65% Muslim population in a particular seat, you will then see a candidate. Invariably, the political party will field a candidate from that community. Now, if through the delimitation, that constituency having 60% Muslim seat, some parts of it are attached to neighboring constituencies, which are obviously Hindu majority, then this constituency will not have 60% Muslims, it will have, let us say, 40%.
Right, Dada.
And then other political parties, including the secular parties, will tend to field a particular candidate who is not Muslim.
Right.
And then what happens? Then obviously it has an impact on the overall Muslim representation. Is that, the percentage the population percentage does not translate into the electoral percentage.
Right.
And that's
so that
the fear.
catches there.
That catches there. And that is the fear of people like Aminul Islam, I understand. And in view of the history of these kind of exercises in Assam, some of these fears are bona fide fears. And that
Right.
much I can say.
Dada.
Because we have seen the NRC exercise. We have seen how many genuine Indian citizens whose names were not included in the NRC
Right.
have committed suicides. So, these things are well known.
Dada.
And look at this interesting thing about NRC. There was a point of time when Pratik Hajela, who was the NRC coordinator, was idolized by the quote-unquote indigenous community. He was the hero. That he is the man who is going to throw out infiltrators and illegal migrants. Now he's the villain. There are people who want to take Pratik Hajela to court and blame him for doing a inadequate, improper NRC, quote unquote again. And he is the villain of the piece, and even some very senior people in the state administration are
Right.
openly saying that this NRC exercise has to be done again.
Mr. Sarma, now the situation as of now that is unfolding in Assam, obviously three key regions of Kachar, Hailakandi and Karimganj. For the benefit of our viewers, I would like you first to throw some light on these particular areas. What is so specific about it? Why the protests are marking their presence in these areas? And secondly, the timing of the delimitation to begin with from your side.
Actually, you have to go into the history of Assam to understand the delimitation process. As you know that Assam is always very sensitive towards the infiltration issue, especially from Bangladesh, the Bangladeshi Mia, as they call them. So the people have insecurity that they will, Assam will become Tripura or Kashmir. So this is the main concern of the people of Assam. So entire process is being carried out by BJP is actually in keeping view the regional sentiments, because they know that it's very difficult to unite people of Assam, always giving them Hindutva slogan. So this is the problem. Now they know. You see, after Sarvanand Sonowal's departure from chief ministership and ascendancy of Himanta Biswa Sarma, he is a caste Assamese. He is a Brahmin, and most of the population in Assam, especially, is dominated by the tribal people. Sonowal was a tribal chief minister. Now he is a caste Okhomia. So there is a discontent among many tribes against Himanta Biswa Sarma itself, because he belongs to high caste. So in the next election or the ensuing Lok Sabha, which is coming up in 2024, it will be very difficult for the BJP to repeat its performance as they won 9 seats in the last Lok Sabha election. So entire process is being carried out keeping in view Lok Sabha elections and next assembly elections. But the objection which is being raised by the opposition parties or the people are not just limited to this exercise of delimitation. There are deep-rooted conspiracy which people see will divide the demography of Assam, will divide the people of Assam along religious line. You see, almost 30% population of Assam is Muslim population. They are Bengali-speaking, mostly Bengali-speaking. The Kachar and the Silchar and Karimganj, all these districts are mainly dominated by the Muslim populace. Most of the area after delimitations, all these area you see you will have less number of Muslim representative in the assembly or in the Lok Sabha. That is the fear of Muslim community, despite they constitute a major part of the population of Assam. And one more thing, the opposition parties are raising objections for this delimitation process because the delimitation process is being carried out on the basis of 2001 census, whereas 2011 census was carried out. But after 2011, so far no census was carried out in last 12 years. It is already overdue. It should have been carried out, but after BJP coming to the power, they promised NRC that NRC will be updated. Although NRC process was started during Tarun Gogoi's tenure, what happened to NRC? People of Assam, especially the Khilonjiya people or the indigenous people, they too are not fully satisfied with this process of delimitation.
That's what Mr. Sarma.
They are demanding constitutional guarantee.
Absolutely.
Constitutional guarantee and 100% or 80% reservation for the indigenous people.
And that's
no
why,
delimitation process.
and that's why I get your point, Mr. Sharma. Very valid point here. That's why the Chief Minister has been harping on the issue of the indigenous SMEs. And as Bhaumik Dada also pointed out that it's a debate for another day, who is indigenous or who is not.